Alrighty, everybody. My name is Lewis. I am here again today, filling in for Jordan Sheridan once again. We are live on Status Coup. Please like this live stream down below, just so that we can get this out to more folks. We are obviously live a bit earlier than intended today with the news of the January 6th hearing. We're going to take some time to really unpack everything that happened during these hearings today. Again, this is one of many hearings that have been going on. This one was recently called in, and today's actually was with Cassidy Hutchinson is her name. She was a top aide to Mark Meadows. Mark Meadows, of course, is the chief of staff to President Trump. I see we've got 124 people here in the room. Please like this live stream, share it with folks on social media, on Twitter, and we will start to get going here on everything that's going on here with January 6th. We'll kick it off here, and we're going to kind of build up into this. I mean, after watching all of this today and seeing all of this take place, I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that President Trump was physically himself actually trying to go to the Capitol, to do something. It's a little unclear about what specifically it is, but I think we can read between the lines a little bit that he wasn't going there just to go there and check it out. He was going there to try to prevent the certification of the election from happening. And we've got clips here that we're going to show in a second that show that this was pretty clearly premeditated. Multiple people knew what was going on, and that, Trump knew that this was had plenty of warning signs, essentially, from folks even in the White House who were pretty conflicted about this, urging him to stop. And some folks seemingly being just disjointed and kind of failing to act in any way. I mean, we're going to see clips here of the person speaking today, who was Cassidy Hutchinson, speaking about Mark Meadows' reaction to a lot of this news. And most of Mark Meadows' reaction was essentially Mark Meadows glued to his cell phone, seemingly not saying anything. But we'll start it off clip-wise here, Colin, with the first clip from the hearing, which talks about Rudy Giuliani. We can play that clip, Colin, and we'll explain it on the other side.
Mr. Chairman, we will begin today with an exchange that first provided Ms. Hutchinson a tangible sense of the ongoing planning for the events of January 6th. On January 2nd, 4 days before the attack on our Capitol, President Trump's lead lawyer, Mr. Giuliani, was meeting with White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and others. Ms. Hutchinson, do you remember Mr. Giuliani meeting with Mr. Meadows on January 2nd, 2021?
I do. He met with Mr. Meadows in the evening of January 2nd, 2021.
And we understand that you walked Mr. Giuliani out of the White House that night, and he talked to you about January 6th. What do you remember him saying?
As Mr. Giuliani and I were walking to his vehicles that evening, he looked at me and said something to the effect of, "Cass, are you excited for the 6th? It's going to be a great day." I remember looking at him and saying, "Rudy, could you explain what's happening on the 6th?" He had responded something to the effect of, "We're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great. The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful. He's going to be with the members. He's going to be with the senators. Talk to the chief about it. Talk to the chief about it. He knows about it."
And did you go back then up to the West Wing and tell Mr. Meadows about your conversation with Mr. Giuliani?
I did. After Mr. Giuliani had left the campus that evening, I went back up to our office and I found Mr. Meadows in his office on the couch. He was scrolling through his phone. I remember leaning against the doorway and saying, "I just had an interesting conversation with Rudy, Mark. It sounds like we're going to go to the Capitol." He didn't look up from his phone and said something to the effect of, "There's a lot going on, Cass, but I don't know. Things might get real bad on January 6th.
So you heard it there. First off, Giuliani saying to Cassidy Hutchinson, quote, "We're going to the Capitol. It's going to be a great day." And also talk to the chief, referring to President Trump. He knows about it. I don't know what other reason you'd be planning on going to the Capitol on January 6th, the day of the vote certification in Congress, other than to prevent it from happening or doing something dramatic along those lines. And again, that was our first instance there of Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, again, kind of just looking into his phone, knowingly saying it's going to be bad. Not a great start to the day. And it only gets worse from here. Colin, if you want to play the next clip, talking here where it seems like folks knew at this point in the White House and were potentially, the hearing references of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers in the actual White House. We can play that clip.
Several emails to White House personnel like Deputy Chief of Staff Tony Ornato and the head of the President's Protective Detail, Robert Engel, including certain materials listing events like those on the screen. The White House continued to receive updates about planned demonstrations, including information regarding the Proud Boys organizing and planning to attend events on January 6th. Although Ms. Hutchinson has no detailed knowledge of any planning involving the Proud Boys for January 6th, she did note this.
I recall hearing the word Oath Keeper and hearing the word Proud Boys closer to the planning of the January 6th rally when Mr. Giuliani would be around.
On January 3rd, the Capitol Police issued a special event assessment. In that document, the Capitol Police noted that the Proud Boys and other groups planned to be in Washington, D.C. on January 6th and indicated that, quote, unlike previous post-election protests, the targets of the pro-Trump supporters are not necessarily the counter-protesters as they were previously, but rather Congress itself is the target on the 6th.
So we heard there now that at that point, there's kind of two big takeaways here, in my opinion. Number one, that Cassidy Hutchinson was hearing rumblings about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and hearing those terms being thrown around in the White House. She doesn't get into specifics about where or how, but she mentions that they're there. And another big takeaway here for me was that on January 3rd, the assessment from, I forget specifically which organization, but I believe it was the Capitol Police, said that the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers were likely going to be targeting the Capitol and not counter-protesters, which is their normal target. So at this point, you know that there are going to be massive crowds, right? It's pretty clear that the president is having this large rally. It's pretty clear that some of these groups that are known to be causing mayhem are coming into town. It's a little scary to hear the terms that they're being thrown around in the White House. Again, we don't have the context of that, but even just the fact that they're discussing the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers there is definitely shady at best. And then again, the planning on the other aspect of it, the lack of police response. I mean, all these groups are going to be here. So why are we not doing anything about it? We've got 189 folks in here. Please like this live stream. We can get some more folks in here. Again, my name's Lewis. I'm filling in today for Jordan, who will be back later this week. He's taking a couple days off, but please like this live stream, and we'll kind of keep going through here. Also, super chats are absolutely welcome. I will be sure to read them either throughout or at the end of this live stream. But we will keep moving here. Alrighty, so the next clip that we're going to show you is pretty crazy. This is the first kind of big bombshell from today's hearing. The Trump administration and Trump himself became aware that folks in the crowd had weapons. And basically, for those of you who need a refresher, Trump was having this rally planned, not at the Capitol, his actual rally where he gave the speech. It was at the Ellipse, which is a park several blocks away from the Capitol, but walking distance, right? So at one point, President Trump was looking at the live TV monitor and was upset that the whole field at the Ellipse was not filled and was wondering where folks were. Word had gotten to him that some folks were essentially stuck outside of they're referring to them as mags. I don't know specifically what these are, but I'm imagining it's some sort of security barrier where folks are going through metal detectors, etc. And that he wanted to let everybody in and to take down the mags because the folks who were coming to this rally did not want to hurt them. And he wanted to keep these folks armed at his rally. Colin, we can play that clip.
Just to be clear, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that the president wanted to take the mags away and said that the armed individuals were not there to hurt him?
That's a fair assessment.
The issue wasn't with the amount of space available in the official rally area only, but instead that people did not want to have to go through the mags. Let's listen to a portion of what you told us about that.
In this particular instance, it wasn't the capacity of our space, it was the mags and the people that didn't want to come through. And that's what Tony had been trying to relay to him that morning. You know, it's not the issues that we encountered on the campaign. We have enough space, or they don't want to come in right now. They have weapons that they don't want confiscated by the Secret Service, and they're fine on the mall. They can see you on the mall, and they want to march straight to the Capitol from the mall.
The president apparently wanted all attendees inside the official rally space and repeatedly said, quote, "They're not here to hurt me."
And just to be clear, so he was told again in that conversation, or was he told again in that conversation, that people couldn't come through the mags because they had weapons?
Correct.
And that people, and his response was to say they can march to the Capitol from the ellipse.
Something to the effect of, take the effing mags away, they're not here to hurt me, let them in, let my people in, they can march to the Capitol after the rally's over, they can march from the ellipse, take the effing mags away, then they can march to the Capitol.
Ms. Hutchinson, what we saw when those clips.
So again, as we just saw there, you know, like I explained before, Trump knows that these folks have weapons and that their next intent is to march to the Capitol, and that they don't want these weapons taken away. And President Trump's response to that is not, oh my God, these people have weapons and are headed to the Capitol. That's terrible. It's no, let's take down the security barriers. Let's fill this area with people with weapons into my rally to make it look as big as it can. And then let's send those people with weapons to the Capitol. Again, I've said this a couple times now, but like, it's pretty clear the intent was to go to the Capitol. And now it's pretty clear that the intent is to go to the Capitol and have people with weapons at the Capitol to go achieve whatever, you know, his ultimate goal may have been that day. Again, likely overturning or not overturning, but preventing the certification from occurring in Congress. I mean, it's insane. This is the first time that we're kind of hearing specifically that this point is being made. And yeah, again, a couple things here just to look at a broader scope before we get into a bit more that's even crazier. I mean, that this continues to build up. You know, the reason that we're in this situation to begin with, Trump becoming president to begin with at all, is because folks were sick and tired of, you know, you had 8 years of President Obama and Democrats in general essentially promising folks, you know, you're going to get these things. We're going to take care of you. I mean, yesterday on the live stream, we were on the issue of abortion. In 2007, President Obama says, you know, the first thing I'll do when I become president is to sign the Freedom of Choice Act into law. And then a year and a half later, with a freaking supermajority in the Senate, the guy says, oh, this isn't my priority anymore. I don't, you know, there's other things that I can be worrying about. Meanwhile, you've got the fucking votes to do it. I mean, you had 59 Democratic senators, 2 independents, including Bernie Sanders, and at least 2 Republicans who are on the record as pro-choice. People see that stuff and they get pissed off. They see, like, I'll briefly talk about this later, but there's some Flint news that Jordan posted a video on the channel earlier today. I may get into some of his tweets from it earlier, but he's going to do a much better job talking about Flint than I am. But in Flint, Michigan, I mean, these folks have their water being poisoned, and you've got President Obama at the time saying he's going to do something about it. To you know, Trump didn't do anything about it either. There's still folks there. I mean, Jordan's been there tons of times at this point, and there's still people with poisoned water. But Obama showed up there, said they were going to fix it, did nothing. When those things start to happen again and again and again, people get pissed off and they're going to vote for the change person, right? The 2016 election for a lot of folks was Hillary Clinton, who in a lot of cases represents decades of exactly what I'm describing, promises that aren't kept. And Donald Trump was an absolute wild card in 2016. And a lot of people were willing to put their vote towards the wild card to just shake things up. And you know what? Honestly, like back at that time frame, it's like that's why we are here in this situation. So we'll keep going here in a second. Again, like this live stream. We're at 240 folks here, only 176 likes. So please like this live stream and get this shared out. And let's see, the next clip we've got here, Colin, is going to be on the counsel at the White House essentially telling the speechwriters not to include the words in President Trump's actual speech that he was giving at the Ellipse this day. He makes a couple references that are definitely adding fuel to the fire. Colin, you can go ahead and play that clip.
One other question at this point, Ms. Hutchinson. Were you aware of concerns that White House counsel Pat Cipolloni or Eric Hirschman had about the language President Trump used in his Ellipse speech?
There were many discussions the morning of the 6th about the rhetoric of the speech that day. In my conversations with Mr. Hirschman, he had relayed that we would be foolish to include language that had been included at the president's request, which had lines along to the effect of, fight for Trump, we're going to march to the Capitol, I'll be there with you, fight for me, fight for what we're doing, fight for the movement. Things about the vice president at the time too. Both Mr. Hirschman and White House counsel's office were urging the speechwriters to not include that language for legal concerns and also for the optics of what it could portray the president wanting to do that day.
And we just heard the president say that he would be with his supporters as they marched to the Capitol. Even though he did not end up going, he certainly wanted to. Some have questioned whether President Trump genuinely planned to come here to the Capitol on January 6th. In his book, Meadows falsely wrote that after President Trump gave his speech on January 6th, he told Mr. Meadows that he was, quote, speaking metaphorically about the walk to the Capitol. As you will see, Donald Trump was not speaking metaphorically. As we heard earlier, Rudy Giuliani told Ms. Hutchinson that Mr. Trump planned to travel to the Capitol on January 6th.
So again, there we now Trump's some of the people within Trump's orbit were concerned about where this was going, rightfully fucking so. A lot of them obviously didn't get the word out quick enough, because we still ended up in this situation. However, he was warned against this, and to look at it a little bit more, I mean, the comments about Mike Pence, he's talking, using the word fight, saying I'm going to go walk to the Capitol with you. I don't know how you can misconstrue that as being a metaphor, but I guess folks did. But all in all, you can tell that President Trump here, disregarded all of this and chose to keep a lot of this more inflammatory language in the speech itself to deliver it at the Ellipse on January 6th. We're now going to start to move into what I think is kind of one of the bigger bombshells that occurs in this, that really shows how pissed off Donald Trump actually was on this day. And in my opinion, really solidifies that this man was trying to do anything he could to actually go to the Capitol. And again, I mean, there's reports that he was trying to just go inside and actually go talk to folks in the House and in the Senate and try to prevent this from happening. Going outside with the folks, I mean, who knows? Excuse me. Thank you, John Ramsey, $10 super chat. We appreciate that. If anyone else, you can, super chats are very much appreciated. I'll either read them out as we're going if I notice them. If not, I will get to all of them at the end. Again, like this live stream. Like I said, we are about to show the next clip, which is probably the most damning one of this entire hearing. So when it takes place is President Trump is now finished his speech at the Capitol, not at the Capitol, at the Ellipse, and he's looking to get to the Capitol. He heads into his motorcade. You're going to hear some references here to the Beast. The Beast is the vehicle that the president actually travels in, the armored vehicle. Colin, you can play that clip, and then we'll discuss it more on the other side.
Ms. Hutchinson, when you returned to the White House in the motorcade after the president's speech, where did you go?
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Ornato lingering outside of the office. And once we had made eye contact, he quickly waved me to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. And I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back. What happened?" Tony proceeded to tell me that when the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, "We're not, we don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing," the president had a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
And
so, I mean, there we've now got, President Trump furious in the motorcade. And just to clarify a couple names here for folks, I know they're throwing around a lot of names. Tony Ornato is the White House chief of operations. He's essentially dealing with like emergency operations whenever they have a special event, or if the president's schedule changes abruptly. He's the one who's kind of coordinating a lot of this stuff behind the scenes to kind of make some of these things happen. So you've heard Cassidy Hutchinson, again, the one who's testifying here, the top aide to Mark Meadows, kind of talking about Tony from time to time. That is the Tony that she is referring to. I mean, at this point now, we've got the president of the United States in the motorcade, Secret Service telling him, "Nope, you can't go to the Capitol." And he physically tries to steer the fucking vehicle to take himself to the Capitol. This man, and at this point, he now knows, because this is after the speech, he now knows that the crowd of people that he had outside of the rally were armed. That's why they weren't being allowed to come in through the metal detectors. So a group of armed people are headed to the Capitol. He wants to head there himself to go do what? What else do you think he'd be going to go do while these votes are being counted? I mean, it's you can tell at this point that he is extremely pissed off and willing to do anything he needs to make this happen, with no regard for any of the people around him who are kind of telling him, "Hey, this is not the right move." And we're going to get to some of that stuff later on, of folks around him trying to prevent him from doing some of this stuff. Another point I want to make here too, I peeked over and saw a couple comments on this, and this is a point that Jordan's made a couple times, and I agree with the point. What is the point of all of this? Why are we covering January 6th, right? There's tons of other important issues going on right now: gas prices, inflation, abortion, the gun law issues that need to be resolved. Why are we focusing on January 6th? Nothing's going to happen, right? I mean, I agree in a lot of cases that, like, personally, I don't really think Trump's going to get in trouble for any of this. I don't think there's going to be a situation where he's going to have actual charges brought against him that succeed. I don't think it's going to happen. However, I think in watching this today and watching a lot of the hearings before this, it's pretty clear that there was an actual attempt by a president in the United States of America to prevent the peaceful transition of power. And I mean, this isn't even a Democrat issue. You know, Democrats should be worried about this, or Republicans should be worried about this. This is like anyone who thinks that the transition of power should happen, like they should be concerned about this. Anyone who actually thinks that voting in a democracy should matter should be concerned about this. Do I think it's going to change anything happening to President Trump himself? Do I think he's going to jail for this? I don't see it happening. I mean, I briefly talked to Jordan on the phone earlier today. He said his thought it was a 50-50 chance that there would even be that he would go into court over this 50-50, that they would try to, he probably wouldn't physically go to court anyway, but that there could be some sort of Justice Department investigation into this. We'll see. I don't see it happening, but I do think it's important to cover, and it's not going to be the only thing we talk about today. Even today, we're going to talk about a couple other issues regarding abortion still, like we covered yesterday, and we may get into some others depending on if time allows here. But I just wanted to make that point, just because I think it's important to still be talking about some of this stuff. Moving on, though, give me one brief second here. So just to kind of continue to drive the point home here about how pissed off President Trump was over this, the next clip, President Trump, this is, now we're kind of reverting back in time a little bit. This is to when he hears about his former Attorney General, Bill Barr, who came out and essentially said that the election fraud claims were bogus. Colin, if you want to play that next clip.
The physical altercation that Ms. Hutchinson described in the presidential vehicle was not the first time that the president had become very angry about issues relating to the election. On December 1, 2020, Attorney General Barr said in an interview that the Department of Justice had not found evidence of widespread election fraud sufficient to change the outcome of the election. Ms. Hutchinson, how did the president react to hearing that news?
Around the time that I understand the AP article went live, I remember hearing noise coming from down the hallway, so I poked my head out of the office, and I saw the valet walking towards our office. He had said, "Get the chief down to the dining room, the president wants him." So Mark went down to the dining room and came back to the office a few minutes later. After Mark had returned, I left the office and went down to the dining room, and I noticed that the door was propped open and the valet was inside the dining room changing the tablecloth off of the dining room table. He motioned for me to come in and then pointed towards the front of the room near the fireplace mantle and the TV, where I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the Attorney General's AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall, which was causing them to have to clean up. So I grabbed a towel and started wiping the ketchup off of the wall to help the valet out. And he said something to the effect of, he's really ticked off about this. I would stay clear of him for right now. He's really, really ticked off about this right now.
Awesome. And before we keep talking here, please like this live stream, guys. We've got 293 folks in here. I see that we had a poll that Colin put up too as well. I'm going to just read some of the results of that just because it is relevant to what I was just saying. Will any charges be brought against Trump? I'm in agreement with 76% of you all that no charges will not be brought up. Thanks for participating in that, guys. And again, please like this live stream. Feel free to share it. The only way that we're able to kind of keep doing this, as well as a lot of the on-the-ground reporting that we've been doing across the country this weekend. We had folks in D.C., New York, me here in Austin, Texas, Tina Desiree Berg, who was on with me yesterday in Los Angeles, covering pro-choice protests across the country as a result of Roe versus Wade overturning. Jordan's reporting on Flint over the last several years, that some news broke on that today. And he's actually is working on an investigative piece on Flint right now that we'll be hearing more on at some point here soon as well. The only way we're able to do some of that stuff is by you all becoming members. You can join to become a member, statuscoup.com/join for $5 or $10 a month. There's different tiered levels. But that's the only way we're able to do this, to give kind of an independent take on what's going on with all these things going on, even with breaking news like today, just so that you're not needing to rely on whatever talking points the mainstream media is trying to shove down everybody's throat with whatever intention they're trying to push there. So yeah, please consider doing that. To be honest with you, the last clip we just showed, I just really wanted to do it because, you know, the image of Trump throwing some porcelain plates and having dripping ketchup coming down the wall was hard to pass by. But you can tell that he is pissed off. I mean, this coalition of folks that he had surrounding him were now slowly starting to come to the realization that, like, this man was actually going to try to overturn the results of the election. Bill Barr obviously was an ally of Trump's for a long time, and then at a certain point, you know, had to when he at a certain point made the decision, you know what, this is too far. He went out and decided to do it, and this was Trump's response. So again, just trying to further illustrate that Donald Trump was extremely pissed off that he was not getting his way here. And was willing to do just about anything to stay where he was, or at least that's my assessment of it at this point after listening to this and all of the hearings before here. So up next, we're gonna have a clip from Pat Cipolloni, who or they're gonna talk about Pat Cipolloni and a conversation that Cassidy Hutchinson, who is testifying here today, had with Pat Cipolloni, as well as Mark Meadows inside of the White House. Pat Cipolloni is the White House counsel. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I know lots of names being tossed around here. But again, Pat Cipolloni, White House counsel. Colin, you can go ahead and play that clip.
Not long after the rioters broke into the Capitol, you described what happened with White House counsel Pat Cipolloni.
No more than a minute and a half later, I see Pat Cipolloni barreling down the hallway towards our office and rushed right in, looked at me, said, "Is Mark in his office?" And I said, "Yes." He just looked at me and started shaking his head and went over, opened Mark's office door, stood there with the door propped open, and said something to Mark is still sitting on his phone. I remember glancing and he's still sitting on his phone. And I remember Pat saying to him something to the effect of, "The rioters have gotten to the Capitol, Mark. We need to go down and see the president now." And Mark looked up at him and said, "He doesn't want to do anything, Pat." And Pat said something to the effect of, and very clearly had said this to Mark, something to the effect of, "Mark, something needs to be done or people are going to die and the blood's going to be on your effing hands. This is getting out of control. I'm going down there." And at that point, Mark stood up from his couch, both of his phones in his hand. He had his glasses on still. He walked out with Pat. He put both of his phones on my desk and said, "Let me know if Jim calls." And they walked out and went down to the dining room.
So in that clip, the Jim she is referring to, I believe, was Jim Jordan. I'm trying to recount back because obviously I just watched all of this, but she was waiting for, or Mark Meadows was waiting for a call from Jim Jordan, just trying to get different voices to get on the phone with President Trump himself to try to talk him into doing something about this, because at this point now, the folks outside of the Capitol had now overtaken the Capitol Police. And I believe at this point they were now inside of the Capitol. All shit was, broke loose. And again, we have Mark Meadows again. I mean, can you imagine, just you're the chief of staff of the president. People are breaking into the Capitol with every member of the House and Senate, the vice president in the building. Can you imagine being the chief of staff to the president who's doing nothing about this and being disconnected and sitting on your phone? I mean, this is now like the 6th or 7th clip where Cassidy Hutchinson here is essentially saying that Mark Meadows has just been staring into his phone and basically like not even responding to questions. I mean, the only in this case, the only reason he eventually got up was because Pat Cipolloni had told him, if we do nothing, the blood's on your hands. I mean, I just can't imagine being in that situation and aimlessly looking into my cell phone, as it's pretty clear at this point. Again, Mark Meadows knows all of this has gone down, that the president knew that there were weapons in the crowd at his rally or outside of the rally, and he's trying to let them in, weapons headed to the Capitol, and that Donald Trump himself wanted to go there. To be doing nothing and just shutting down when you're in that situation to potentially do something is insane to me. And I guess, you know, him trying to get the phone call from Jim Jordan or something, but like, just fucking sit there and keep calling Jim Jordan if you think Jim Jordan's going to be able to talk some sense into him, right? Who knows if Jim Jordan's going to be able to talk any sense into him, because that guy's also a lunatic in a lot of cases. But you know, we've got to get somebody talking to him to do something. So again, this just continues to escalate here. And now we're going to get into the clips here. Obviously on January 6th, you know, you've got the image of the noose hanging from in the distance outside of the Capitol, and there's folks calling for Vice President Pence to literally be hung. You know, it's insane. And you know, you hear, I've got a quote here. You heard what he said. He thinks Mike deserves it, is what we're going to hear in a bit from Mark Meadows, saying that, you know, we heard what President Trump says, that he believes that Mike Pence deserves something during this. We can go ahead and play this clip, and then on the other side, we'll talk about it.
Until Mark hung up the phone, handed it back to me. I went back to my desk. A couple minutes later, him and Pat came back, possibly Eric Hirschman too. I'm pretty sure Eric Hirschman was there, but I'm confident it was Pat that was there. I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, "Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung." And Mark had responded something to the effect of, "You heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong." To which Pat said something, "This is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more." Briefly stepped into Mark's office. And when Mark had said something to the effect of, "He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong," knowing what I had heard briefly in the dining room, coupled with Pat discussing the hang Mike Pence chants in the lobby of our office, and then Mark's response there to be the rioters in the Capitol that were chanting for the vice president to be hung.
Let me pause here on this point. As rioters chanted hang Mike Pence, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, said that, quote, "Mike deserves it," and that those rioters were not doing anything wrong. This is a sentiment that he has expressed.
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
Whew. I mean, that's you heard what he said. He thinks Mike deserves it. You heard what he said. He thinks Mike deserves it. I mean, the fact that the president of the United States is essentially saying that the vice president deserves to be hung. I mean, they don't give the whole quote there. Who knows if he did say it fully out like that, but there's pretty clear intent that that's what he's saying. I mean, Mike Pence, I'm not a Trump fan, not a Mike Pence fan, obviously. However, Trump owes a lot to Mike Pence, honestly, even for getting elected a bit in the beginning. I mean, Mike Pence was added to the ticket, and he kind of really solidified Trump getting a lot of the more religious conservative base that is needed to win the Republican primary. I mean, obviously, Trump did a lot of things that kind of broke how you win the Republican primary or primaries in general for anybody. But Mike Pence stood by this guy's side, Donald Trump's side, for years as he said crazy things, did crazy things, and stayed there and tried to be a kind of calm guy to kind of keep, okay, you know, Mike Pence is in there too. You know, again, Mike Pence probably helped Trump get in there and kind of craft some of those Supreme Court nominees, as we're fucking seeing right now. This is a guy who is loyal to Trump through all sorts of things, or at least seemingly loyal to him from a distance up until this moment. And to hear Donald Trump now essentially saying that, like, he's okay with the protesters hanging Mike Pence, the folks outside of the Capitol hanging Mike Pence, is, I mean, there are not words that describe it. I mean, it's crazy. And honestly, the fact that Meadows here, like, isn't doing anything still. I mean, he says that. You heard what he said. He thinks Mike deserves it. Mike deserves it. We can't, like, so you can do nothing? You can do nothing. I mean, this is another, like, subplot to this is, in my opinion, I think Mark Meadows could have been doing a lot more to try to pull some strings behind the scenes. Who knows? Again, that's a fucking, I can't imagine being in that situation, but you're there, you're in the situation, so do something about it. We've got a couple more tweets here, or videos here, and this next one's just a tweet with an image, I believe. We actually have some text messages from Laura Ingraham of Fox News to Mark Meadows that we can put up on the screen here. Colin, I'll read those. So this is Laura Ingraham to Mark Meadows. Laura saying, "Hey Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy and playing into every stereotype. We lose all credibility against the BLM and Antifa crowd if things go south." I mean, kind of fun that Laura Ingraham is realizing, oh, wow, we're just giant hypocrites, because it's pretty clear that at this point, Trump wanted those people there. So Trump can complain about BLM and Antifa, as he did for years at all these things happening. Meanwhile, he's doing something significantly worse by knowingly sending these people with weapons. You know, maybe he's not sending them directly, but he knows that they have weapons, and he, in his speech, is telling people, we're going to the Capitol. I'm going to go with you, even though he didn't go with them. We're going to the Capitol. I'm going to go with you. You've got weapons. Like, it's absolutely insane. And it is very hypocritical. As Laura points out, she makes a great point there. It's probably the only time I'll say Laura Ingraham makes a good point, but she did. And the texts don't stop with Laura Ingraham. I believe we've got another one here from Don Jr. Colin. I think this one's a video if you want to put that up.
So urgently contacted Mark Meadows. At 2:53, he wrote, "He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough." As you will see, these are just two of the numerous examples of Trump supporters and allies urging the president to tell his supporters to leave the Capitol. It would not have been hard for the president to simply walk down to the briefing room a few feet down the hall from the Oval Office.
So there you have it. I mean, even the president's own son, Don Jr., saying that we need to end this. To me, one quick thing before I make the point. We've got over 300 people here, guys. Please like this live stream and share it so we can get some more folks in here. That would be great. The fact, though, that Don Jr. is texting Mark Meadows this is also a little bit bizarre. I mean, I've been shitting on Mark Meadows a lot during this stream, but, like, also to Donald Trump Jr., I mean, that's your dad. Fucking pick up the phone and call your dad. Go see your dad. If anyone has the ability, and I get, obviously, we don't understand their relationship and everything, but in looking at Trump in general, he seems to value his family's opinion more than just about anybody else's. Hence why he has, you know, Jared Kushner assigned a role in the White House, Ivanka. All these people are in the loop of what's going on. If anyone could kind of calm him down and make him realize what the hell he's doing, I feel like it would probably be his family members. So the fact that Don Jr. is texting the president's chief of staff to do something is a bit surprising to me. I don't know how to take that, but that's what happened, I guess. Again, you know, another message to Meadows, though, that to do something. And And then another one here, we've got a clip from, at the time, Kevin McCarthy urging the president to make a statement, if we want to play that video, Colin.
I want to quickly bring in Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader. Leader McCarthy, do you condemn this violence?
I completely condemn the violence in the Capitol. What we're currently watching unfold is un-American. I am disappointed. I'm sad. This is not what our country should look like. This is not who we are. This is not the First Amendment. This has to stop, and this has to stop now.
Leader McCarthy, the President of the United States has a briefing room steps from the Oval Office. The cameras are hot 24/7, as you know. Why hasn't he walked down and said that now?
I conveyed to the president what I think is best to do, and I'm hopeful the president will do it.
Republican House member Mike Gallagher also implored the president to call off the attack.
Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off. Call it off. The election is over. Call it off. This is bigger than you. It's bigger than any member of Congress. It is about the United States of America, which is more important than any politician. Call it off. It's over.
So obviously hearing from Kevin McCarthy and another Republican congressman there. Again, this is just an entire, at that point, folks had been in the Capitol for a period of time. President Trump didn't release that very lame video that he released on January 6th, just before his Twitter account was suspended. It took him several hours to tell people inside of the Capitol to leave. Several hours that were absolutely wasted. He could have ended this immediately, but he didn't want to end it. That's I think what I'm gathering after watching all of this. And I mean, I've been thinking that for a while, but he did not want this to end. If you wanted this to end, you wouldn't have been doing all of the planning all ahead of time, right? So at this point now, I'm going to pull up some of this stuff here just so I can reference some of the notes here. But at this point, we now know that, days before, Rudy Giuliani, one of President Trump's lawyers, advisors, is talking with Cassidy Hutchinson here, saying, what are you excited about January 6th? It's going to be a great day. We're going to the Capitol. And, she's kind of going and coming back to her boss and talking about it. And at that time, Mark Meadows says, I don't know, things could be getting really bad, right? Then the same person, Cassidy, is hearing, comments in the White House, people talking, quietly about the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and the Capitol Police then saying that they now know that the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers are going to be in DC on January 6th, and that their target was not going to be counter protesters, but that their target was going to be the Capitol. And that's notable because normally their target is messing with counter protesters and not, going to some sort of objective. The Capitol was clearly their target at this point, and the Capitol Police knew that, and they were still apparently unprepared. I don't know. Next, we know now that Trump and his advisors knew that people in the crowd at his speech in the Ellipse had weapons. Okay, we knew that they had weapons. Trump said, I don't care if they have weapons, let them in, because I need to fill the gap. I need to, Trump's all about the appearance of what it looks like on TV. I need to fill the crowd and make it look like there's more people here. There was obviously a sizable number of people there, but he wanted to let the folks in, even who had the weapons, who were afraid to go in because they did not want their weapons to be confiscated. Trump then urged all of those people, who many of them he now knows has weapons, to go to the Capitol. You can, you don't need to be a genius to understand why you would want people with weapons to go to the Capitol on the day that the votes, that the election is being certified by the U.S. Congress. Okay, we then have folks advising Trump not to have his speech be as inflammatory as it was, specifically calling out Vice President Pence, specifically using the word fight multiple times. There were people in the White House counsel essentially telling him this is a bad idea and you're probably going to have legal ramifications as a result of it. We then have Trump freaking out in the motorcade, in the Beast, as they called it, as he is driving away, from his speech, wanting to go to the Capitol. Also, guys, again, please continue to like this live stream. Super chats are absolutely welcome. I will be sure to read them at the end of the stream. If there are any, thank you all very much. Again, please like the live stream. So Trump, inside of the motorcade, saying we need to go to the Capitol still. I'm being told there's still a way we can go to the Capitol, because as he's getting in, he's told that he can't. The driver says, nope, we're going back to the White House. We're going back to the White House, to which Trump responds by grabbing the steering wheel of the motorcade and trying physically himself to steer it. And then when the another person in the vehicle grabs his arm to do it, the testimony says that President Trump grabbed the person by the clavicle around the neck. Crazy. We then have, Pat Cipolloni, White House counsel, coming into the White House and urging Mark Meadows to do something about this, or else blood would be on his hands for failing to act, right? There's calls for the vice president to be hung. It's absolutely insane. And there was tons of inaction going on all throughout this. So a lot to go over there, but a couple other key points that I just want to make. Again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, but the reason that Donald Trump became president, that we had a Trump-like figure, right? Is literally a reality TV show host become president of the United States over Hillary Clinton, was because we had decades of Democrats choosing to not do anything to fulfill the promises that they made, right? Again, I made the comment earlier today with President Obama on abortion in 2007 and 2007 saying, this is my top priority, passing the Freedom of Choice Act. It's the first thing I'll do when I become president. And then in 2009, what does he do? Oh, it's not my priority anymore, while he has a supermajority in the Senate and even some Republicans who were openly pro-choice at the time. It would have been an easy thing to do to pass it. Even if he didn't, okay, let's say there were one or two Democrats that didn't do it. Okay, you got 59 votes, do some fucking horse trading. That's what you're supposed to do. Go there, make some deals. You can get one more person out of 100. That issue would not be there anymore. But if they solved it then, they wouldn't be able to be fundraising on it now like they are. Again, yesterday in the live stream and in folks that we were talking to on the ground, again, I was on the ground here in Austin interviewing protesters, and they were talking about getting fundraising emails immediately. Oh, rush $15 to elect Joe Biden, blah, 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 blah. It's bullshit. Again, in Flint, Jordan posted a video. I actually urge all of you. He posted a video. He's on vacation. Hopefully he doesn't get in trouble for posting a video while on vacation, but you can check it out today. Actually, you know what, Colin? I might not read the whole thread, but do you mind pulling up Jordan's tweets on Flint for me? I don't know if you have them there. So obviously Jordan and Status Coup in general have been covering this for a long time. If for those of you who don't recognize me, I'm fairly new to the Status Coup team. I've been doing some on the ground reporting and whatnot over the last couple weeks. Sorry, Colin, I'll read from it in a second. Jordan's been covering this for a long time, so I'm going to let him do the longer storytelling on exactly what's going on right now. But I do want to bring some of these tweets from Jordan to you now, but I just didn't want to, I don't want to bring something to you that I haven't necessarily been as invested in as Jordan has. So we can pull those tweets back up, Colin. Thank you. Breaking, as I warned, the Flint water crisis charges against ex-Michigan Governor Rick Snyder and 7 other defendants have been dropped to Michigan AG Dana Nessel's stunning bungling of the case. Jordan goes on to say, reminder, from 2016 through 2018, an independent Flint special prosecutor and lead investigator, former head of Detroit FBI office, had built a widespread criminal prosecution charging 15 state and city officials with crimes ranging from involuntary manslaughter to financial fraud. As Status Coup broke, that team was building a case against Snyder for involuntary manslaughter and had compiled evidence showing Snyder helped cover up deadly Legionnaires' outbreak that killed many in Flint. Yet Nessel fired the special prosecutor and chief investigator. I encourage you. I won't read the whole thing on here just because it is it's kind of a lengthy thread, but I encourage you to check out his thread there. And again, our last video posted up just before this is going to be Jordan breaking down all of that. But that was breaking news today as well. it did not get the attention because of this January 6th hearing. One other area that I do want to talk about that is kind of building off of yesterday's live stream. We had a couple new comments, and for those of you who weren't there yesterday, Tina, Desiree Berg, and I were speaking on the issue of abortion and Roe versus Wade being overturned on Friday of last week. Yesterday evening, actually kind of during our live stream while it was going down, there was an interview with Vice President Harris. I'm actually not sure if we have this video or not, Colin. If not, I can just talk about it. Do we have a Vice President Harris video? I don't see a link here.
No, I don't have it on me. No.
That's okay. All good. So essentially, Vice President Harris was asked in an interview, I believe with NBC News, that about the potential for opening up abortion clinics on federal land in states where abortion has now an outright ban. When Vice President Harris was asked about this, she essentially said, well, that's not something we're looking at. I don't think that there's anything specific that we can be doing there that could open up all sorts of different angles. When in reality, I mean, that is a pretty clear step that the federal government could take. I mean, there's federal land in all 50 states, if I'm not mistaken, anything from a federal office building or something like that. A national park is federal land. In a lot of states in the West, there's Bureau of Land Management land. There are all sorts of things that fall into the category of federal land. And that could be something you could do now. Instead, what Vice President Harris suggested was that we need to, this is paraphrasing a bit, but we need to shift the balance of Congress. So essentially, Vice President Harris is telling you to vote in November. And that's how we're going to take care of this. Now, I'm sure you all are seeing a lot of the same polling that I am, and even the most optimistic polling for Democrats generally has them losing seats in the House and in the Senate, not gaining seats, losing seats. So if there are 50 Democratic votes in the Senate today, with Vice President Harris as the tiebreaker vote being 51, and they're going to lose votes likely in November, that logic seems a little bit flawed to me, if you ask me. But nevertheless, that is what the administration is asking for at this point. Pretty pathetic. Again, we had folks yesterday all claiming that the Democrats have they don't have any standing on this issue anymore. They just don't. Something that could be done right now: overturn the filibuster. But again, President Biden's not going to do that. And to the folks who will say inevitably, oh, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, President Biden can't do anything. He can't do anything about it, guys. I'm sorry, he can't. He just doesn't have the votes. President Biden has not used the full extent of the bully pulpit to call them out specifically in speech after speech. President Biden could go to their states, go to Arizona, and have a speech in Arizona, which is where Kyrsten Sinema is the senator, saying Kyrsten Sinema is preventing you from having access to abortion. Do the same thing in West Virginia. I mean, I saw clips in Arizona of protesters pissed off in big crowds in Arizona. I'm sure some of you saw the clips. The other thing he could do is more privately or openly say, Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, I will personally make sure you never win an election again unless you get on board with this. I will make sure, I'll talk to people to make sure that millions of dollars are put into candidates to primary against you. I'll make sure that everybody endorses those candidates who primary against you, right? So there are ways to do this. But President Biden is not going to do that. He does not have the stones to go out and call them out like that and to threaten having folks run against them. And I mean, honestly, folks in Congress, when Nancy Pelosi would probably say something along the lines again of, I only vote for my incumbents. I trust my incumbents. They're the ones who I always back them. My incumbents. No one cares about if they're an incumbent or not. They care if they're on the right issues. Again, right here in Texas, we've talked about this before. Nancy Pelosi chose to back her incumbent, back her incumbent, Henry Cuellar, who was an anti-choice Democrat one of the last, if not one of the only last anti-choice candidates in the entire Congress of the United States. Henry Cuellar, Nancy Pelosi decides, nope, we're going to back our incumbents instead of Jessica Cisneros, a 27-year-old immigration attorney, extremely intelligent, very she's on it on all of the issues. She's pro-choice, and she would have done a great job representing her district. Instead, Pelosi decides to not only endorse Cuellar, but she decides to record robocalls for him. She encourages Steny Hoyer to endorse him. She has a Jim Clyburn decides to come down to Texas and actually campaign for him, have events for him. Again, this is for a candidate who does not support a woman's right to choose. But at the same time, and this is the Democratic establishment backing Henry Cuellar, this person. And at the same time now, the Democratic establishment is saying, well, you just need to vote for more Democrats and we'll solve the problem for you. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I don't think so. It doesn't make sense to me. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. So these issues, again, not to tie it back into the other thing, but like that's why we had a person like Trump in the position that he was in, right? It's ridiculous. A couple more small updates, and then we'll start to wrap this up. Colin, if you want to pull up the two articles on the bottom here, I just want to. We can just show the headlines. Really, there are a couple challenges to some of these trigger laws happening in a couple different states. Utah and Louisiana are two of them that are happening, and I believe there are more in others. So, Planned Parenthood Association of Utah asked the judge to temporarily block state's abortion trigger law. Again, these trigger laws, there's one here in Texas where I am. I'm more familiar with that one. Every state's a little bit different, but essentially Texas had passed a law years ago saying that if Roe v. Wade were ever to be overturned, the right to an abortion would be would go away essentially. Sorry, I switched away tabs there and lost track. The right to an abortion will go away yeah, so the in Texas, it's 30 days after. So we're a couple days in, and about 25 more days, abortion in Texas will be fully banned. But the issue that a lot of these states are running into is in Texas, for example, a lot of clinics they're worried about getting into legal issues. So they've decided to stop giving abortions now. So what's going on in Utah and Colin, I believe the other one is for Louisiana, if you want to just put that headline up there. But what's happening in Utah and in Arizona, Louisiana, thank you. Court blocks enforcement of Louisiana trigger law outlawing abortion. What's happening in those states is that a lot of clinics were just shutting it off immediately right when it happened because they're worried about getting into legal trouble, which leaves a lot of women in a pretty fucking terrible position. If, let's say last week you were in the queue to have your appointment on Friday or Monday or Tuesday, what are you supposed to do? I don't know. I feel terrible for women. And again, as we talked, it's a slippery slope. I mean, right now it's starting with this issue on abortion that dramatically affects women more than it affects men. Although men should be worried too, because you know what, guys, if someone you're with is forced to carry the baby to term and you don't want anything to do with it, I mean, you're going to have a lot of ramifications as well. I had a protester here in Austin come up and talk to me about this and say, child support ain't cheap. And people go to jail for not paying their child support. So this affects women more directly, but it can be affecting men as well. And then beyond that, the slippery slope of all of the other cases that Justice Clarence Thomas just decided to say the quiet part out loud. He went in and talked about the potentially looking at overturning Obergefell, Lawrence, and Griswold. Those are cases that would essentially put the marriage equality back to the states, making gay marriage potentially illegal in 15 states or so. Potentially, those states could go through and pass laws. Fucking hopefully. The other cases that were related there were on contraceptives, which, believe it or not, they're going to look at it, right? They want to get rid of abortion, but then they also want to make it more difficult to get contraceptives. Does that make sense? If you want to prevent women from having abortion, you should make access to contraceptives easier, not harder. But that logic is not there. Yeah, I mean, grim times on a lot of these fronts because, like I said, I mean, Democrats aren't going to do anything about it. And I mean, we know what Republicans are celebrating. Republicans are actually doing what they said they were going to do. Maybe the Democrats should take a page out of their book. You know, the Republicans for 50 years have been saying we're going to overturn Roe versus Wade, right? And what did they do? They spent fucking 50 years building a coalition and doing it. They did it. They succeeded. The Democrats, they say we're going to do these things. And then a lot of the times, unfortunately, they're falling short. I don't know where that leaves us, but it's not in a good state of affairs. All right, I'm going to start to wrap this up. I see we've got some super chats here. If anyone else wants to send any, I'll read them off right now. The first one, John Ramsey, early on got us started with $10. Another one, Lana Dell hates the clock, $10. Just vote, ? Yes, we need to vote, but Pelosi needs to go. # vacate the chair. I'm definitely a fan of that. I agree with you. We'll see if anyone's got the ability, or not the ability, if anyone's got the stones to try to run against her. I mean, honestly, I don't think she's going to be the Speaker of the House in a couple months here anyway, because I don't see Democrats holding on to the House. But if they do, we'll see if anyone tries to get the role of Speaker from her. But I'm not holding my breath on that one. But thank you for the $10, Lana Dell. Richard Manzanares, sorry for butchering your last name, $5. Thank you, Richard. Another one from Lana Dell hates the clock, another $10. No, # dump the incumbents. Vote in your primary to get rid of them. Yes, that was definitely in regard to the Jessica Cisneros versus Henry Cuellar thing I was talking about there. Agreed. The fact that we're just blanketly backing incumbents is pathetic, but also so we need to get the word out to get more people to actually go vote in those primary elections. Oftentimes it's a well-funded incumbent candidate who's starting off with $1 million running against some folks who have, maybe they're lucky, and when they've been campaigning, they've talked to their inner circle of friends and they've raised $15,000 or $20,000 to try to get started. But which sounds like a lot of money, because it is a lot of money. But when you're running against someone with $1 million, there's just not much you can do. We got one more super chat here from Chris Garrett, $5. Thanks, Chris. Lewis is doing a great job in the field and guest hosting. Hope you can join the members call. Welcome to the community. Wow, that's the community. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I will try to make it into the next member call. I'm not sure if we have a date for the next member call yet. If we do, Colin can pop in and tell me. But and for those of you who are wondering what the member call is, roughly once a month, Jordan will generally organize it. We'll have a call with the Status Coup team and anyone who is a member of Status Coup. So becoming a member of Status Coup is how we're able to do all of this. This weekend, for example, we were across the country. Like I've mentioned, we had folks, Tina Desiree Berg in Los Angeles covering protests. I was here in Austin, Texas covering protests. We had John Farina, video journalist in Washington, D.C., right at the Supreme Court covering protests. He got some footage of Marjorie Taylor Greene walking outside celebrating. We had Jordan in New York City. He was able to go live from a protest in Washington Square Park. Beyond that, I mean, when the tragedy in Uvalde happened, I was actually on my way to go cover the Jessica Cisneros primary election night campaign when that shooting tragically happened, and we were able to go on the ground, and I was able to spend a couple days in Uvalde bringing you some interviews with folks there, as well as an interview with a congressional candidate actually down there. But becoming a member is how we're able to do all of this. So the way to do that is to head to statuscoup.com/join. There are options for anywhere from $5 to $10 a month. It makes a big difference in being able to make all of this stuff happen. So please head there and do it if you're able. If you're not able to afford it, though, please, even just sending this out to your friends, to your family, always helps. So you can share the YouTube. You can also follow us on social media. We're at Status Coup on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is an area we've been focusing on getting some of the content out. So you can follow there. And if you're interested in following me at all, I am at LouisD217 on Twitter. That's LOUISD217 on Twitter. But Otherwise, thank you all very much for joining today. Tomorrow, the live stream will be back at its normal time of 5 p.m. Eastern time, and you'll have Tina Desiree Berg hosting. I'm sure she'll have a great show lined up for everybody. And Jordan should be back on Thursday. Thanks everybody for watching, and have a great afternoon.